Hey, this is a video response to Rolling Heads. I remember BuckyO'Hare. I've got to the part in the game where you have to rescue your team members, and I got stuck somehow. And I don't necessarily remember what exact part, but like I said, I'll have to play through it again to let you know in detail what part I was stuck with. But yeah, I will admit that game is a little hard, and there's a lot of parts that you cry bullshit because of some of the platforms and the way the game's set up. And I find BuckyO'Hare's jumping mechanic to be a little finicky. You know what I mean? Let's see. I mentioned in the comments of your video that you posted about that game about 2 games that I had problems with when I was a kid, but then when I got older and better at video games, I went through again and beat them with little problems. Actually, there's 3 of them, but I'll go ahead and just name the two that I've mentioned. First, let's go with Rygar. Now, when I bought this game when I was 15, I had no idea where to go. I had no idea where to go, what to do, what was the point. I just knew it was somewhat like a Zelda 2 clone because you do gain levels and gain experience, and you can use, if you use those, they have these tablets and they have stars on them. Those are, I guess you can call them power-up points, magic points, because there's 3 power-ups you can use in the pause screen. There's power-up, which extends the length of your disc armor. There's attack and assail, which basically hits or kills all enemies on screen. That goes well definitely during the final boss of Lygar. And the third one is recover, which replenishes all your health. Now that part is easy to understand, but the rest of it is knowing where to go and what to do. Thankfully, I have a friend, his name is Carl, and he had a bunch of NES manuals that he was willing to give me because he didn't have these games, and he was like, alright, well, if you have these games, you're free to take the instruction manuals. The instruction manual basically does tell you where to go and what to do. I mean, it drops hints and shows the map of the overhead part. I don't know if you ever played Rygar, but it's a fantastic title, and if you haven't played it, I suggest you should. In my top 10 video, that was actually one of the titles that I mentioned that was one of my favorites. And after I got that instruction manual, I figured out what to do and where to go. Now the game's like cake to me. I can beat it within probably a half an hour. I can probably do a playthrough on it just to show. But the only time-consuming thing within the game is leveling up. You gotta sit there and you attack and attack and attack and kill and kill and kill until your life extends by 1 point, and it makes a doo-doo-doo sound. Let's see, you start with 3 and you get about, I want to say 8 or 9 points, and that's and you can't level up after a certain point. Basically, you know, in Zelda, when you get all the life containers and all the hearts are filled up 2 rows, well, basically that's what happens with Rygar. You have like a row of 5 and another row of 5 when you're leveled up to full. You don't find life containers like you do in Zelda, obviously. But once I figured out what to do, I understand the leveling up system. I understand the use of the items and weapons and power-ups. Therefore, I went ahead and went through the game and completed it within a half hour, 45 minutes. But just like Zelda 2, leveling up is the bitch of it all, and it takes a long time to do. ActRaiser 2, on the other hand, is a totally different story. That game is hard right out of the box. What disappointed me about the sequel of that game was there was no simulation mode, which you got to build your towns and basically play God. If the people pissed you off, you can create an earthquake and annihilate all the fuckers and laugh at their expense, even though they're not real, but you know what I mean. It allows you to portray an actual disaster and kill people without, you know, suffering any consequences, other than the lack of population in that particular town that you're trying to build. In ActRaiser 2, it was just strictly action, and the music was by the world-renowned composer Yuzo Koshiro, known for games such as Streets of Rage 1 through 3, Revenge of Shinobi, or Super Shinobi in Japan, and other games like Super Adventure Island, and the list goes on. He's a fantastic composer, and truly one of my favorites in terms of Japanese composure and video game music. But ActRaiser 2, when I first picked it up, I was 14. I bought it for $5 off my German friends, and I could not get anywhere in it whatsoever. Because it was just difficult, and learning all the enemy patterns at the time would just make me throw a fit. I'd get pissed and throw the controller and punch a wall, punch the floor, and fucking people in my house were getting all pissed at me because they're like, "What the hell are you doing?" I'm fucking mad. It's called Rage Quit. Have you heard of it? Probably not. But to be fair, later in life, I want to say when I turned, I want to say 2021, around that time frame. Actually, no. It has to be longer than that because I bought a few games before then, and those grabbed my attention more so than my backlog. Give me a minute to think here. Okay. Yeah, the two games I remember specifically now. Mega Man, the first Mega Man, the NES, because I never played through it. I got into Wily Stage 1, and the part where those, I can't remember the name of the enemies, but the ones that stomp on you, those fuckers pissed me off. Okay. And I would get to the Green Devil and lose because he was ridiculously hard. But eventually I learned his pattern and beat him, and the rest of the game is pretty much cake from that point on. And then I got Super Double Dragon because I'm a fan of Double Dragon. I've always been a fan of the series. It was fantastic. And, well, and then with ActRaiser 2, one day I just said, you know what, I've beaten the first one a trillion times. And I don't know if you're into emulation, but if you're a fan of ActRaiser, play the Japanese one. It gives a hell of a lot more challenge. The first game, not the second game. Because the first game released in North America was complete garbage in terms of difficulty. It was toned down, watered down. It wasn't worth a playthrough once you played the Japanese version. Anyways, with that being said, let's go back to ActRaiser 2. I was a fan of the game because of the rich composure of Yuzo Koshiro, and I liked the action sequences. I thought they were cool. You were an angel with a bunch of powers, and I thought that kicked ass, you know? Much like Demon's Crest, which was an also excellent game. But that game used to piss me off at age 14 to the point where I was in tears just by being so pissed off. I couldn't do anything or think of anything to conquer the game because my game skills, I guess, were lacking at the time. But one day, at around the age of 2021, I said, alright, you know what? Let's boot up this game and go through it, no matter how frustrated I get. Sure enough, there were 4 levels I beat without a problem. There was the jungle stage, which I think is just something like that. Then there's the underwater world, Aretha, I don't know. They got some many messed up names for some of the towns. And I've got all the way to Tanzura. Tanzura was a wuss. I beat his ass. The first time I got to him, I had little to no life. And I didn't know how to beat him. I lost all my life almost instantaneously. Because I didn't know his pattern. But I learned his pattern on the second life I had. And I beat him. And I put the controller down. I was in awe. Like I was with Batman, because that game it's crazy. ActRaiser 2 is extremely hard, and there are some things about the game that kind of break it, if you want to call it that. Like the gliding system in it's pointless. I mean, it's to get to one place to another without having to jump, because when you jump, it's stiffer than the board. I mean, the gliding really helps you get to further platforms, but they put a mechanism where you can attack while gliding, but it does nothing because you get hit by the enemies anyways. But there is a down thrust attack with the gliding weapon that brings you down fast. That's a powerful weapon, and powerful technique, and I've used that a lot on bosses. And probably the best magic in that game was the overhead fireballs. I use that pretty much in every boss in the game, and I've beat them with little to no difficulty. So those 2 games, definite crap. The third game I have to say that I loved as a kid, couldn't get nowhere, up to the 4th level to be honest, but I beat one day just by booting it up and just playing all the way through, was The Adventures of Bayou Billy. Now, the hard part about that game was the 5th level, the highway. Your Jeep controls like crap. I mean, it controls like gold on the dirt stage, which was level 5. But when you get to the highway on the cement part, it was hard to control your Jeep because for some reason, I don't know, maybe the tires don't react well to cement, to concrete. I seriously don't know. But I sat there, it took me 45 minutes, and my brother, who was older than me, obviously, was astounded that I actually just boot up the game after many years, played and beat it. And I was pretty shocked myself, because that game is difficult. The Japanese version is called Mad City, which I finally played just recently, and I beat it within like 20 minutes. I guess the game in Japan has 3 best endings, or 3 endings, I'm sorry. And there is the best ending, which was automatically included in the US version, which in that version is considerably harder. Now, I don't know why they did that, because if you think about back to Mario 2, ours was actually a modification of Doki Doki Panic, which was an FDS game over in Japan, which was a bunch of, I want to say, you know, something from you would see in Arabian Nights kind of characters, you know, with turbans and capes and all sorts of crazy crap. And you couldn't pick your character between stages like you could in Mario 2. You actually had to use that one character throughout the whole game, and you couldn't switch. So it gave it some replayability. I was a fan of Mario 2. That was probably one of my favorite games on the NES. Okay. Mario 2 to me was a very fun title in the United States. I didn't know until about '93 when Mario All-Stars came out that was not the true Mario 2. Mario 2 Lost Levels came out on the Virtual Consoles when I actually purchased and played the game, because I couldn't find the ROM, and that game was considerably difficult. Now, they were afraid, Nintendo themselves were afraid to bring the real Mario 2 over on the stateside because of the difficulty. Now, why did Konami think reversively on that here? I don't get it, because the US version of Bayou Billy is extremely hard. I mean, it is. I don't know if who's played it and understands where I'm coming from on this topic, but the game was complete hard shit. But it was good. I mean, it was a thorough experience. You had different level designs, like you would do a beat 'em up, then shooting, then driving, and then repeat process. That was cool. Another game that did that was Vice Project Doom. Excellent game that should have had a sequel. The ending gave away for a sequel, but the sequel was never fabricated, so I find that to be disappointing. Anyways, on the topic of Bucky O'Hare, yes, I have 2 fan DVDs. I can't showcase them right now because when I moved here in my new home, I packed them all away, and I really don't feel like digging them out. It is a hot, steamy day out today. It's about, like, it's 87, and I'm trying to do as little as possible today because it's really hot outside. So I don't feel like digging them out. But yes, I'm familiar with it. And I don't know if you've ever seen the series finale for that. It was complete ridiculousness because the ending was subtle. You know what I mean? It was just bam, end, done. You expect some epic ending because here's Bucky O'Hare and the Space Federation, or whoever the hell they are, defeat the Toad Wars, or defeat the Toad Menace. Sorry. And that was it. They think Bucky O'Hare, they fly off the screen, and that was the end of it. And I mentioned in the comments too that Konami made an arcade game of this. I actually played the arcade game when I was little at a Walmart. Yes, Walmart at one point had arcade games in them. The games that between each other, where I used to live, had Captain America and the Avengers and Bucky O'Hare. The game was crap, though. I mean, many people are a fan of the Simpsons arcade game. I think it's boring. There's 2 Konami arcade beat-em-ups that I think are actually quite enjoyable. That would be X-Men and TMNT. Oh, and the sequel, Turtles in Time. Those were fantastic. But everyone's got their opinions and their likings, so I'm not going to go ahead and bash what people like. As for the Xbox Live comment, I don't like HD gaming, period. I'm a retro gamer, strictly. Yes, I have a Wii, but I hacked the bitch so I can play a bunch of retro games on it. I don't believe in supporting a company who used to be great, but has become lazy over time. To me, Nintendo is the new Capcom. Just rehashes games constantly. I always will love the NES, SNES, and N64 because those systems I've had the most fun with, and I continue to have fun with them to this day. So, Xbox Live, no-go. PS3, no-go. Wii, I play, but I don't play the actual titles on the system. I just use it for an emulation machine. And that's pretty much it. With BuckyO'Hare, I've seen the series, and it just ends. And like I said, the arcade game wasn't something I liked. You ran around and shot your pistol all the time, and it didn't do much. Like, you would die almost instantaneously, but they got all the original voice work from the series. And I guess, from what I read on Wikipedia, Wikipedia likes to extend the truth a little too far, is, they stated that that was a way of saying, okay, well, since we ended the series, here's a better ending. Take it as you will, but, yeah, that's my take. There are a lot more games I could tell you, but it would take me a while because my catalog is huge. I have my game collections on my channel if you care to check them out. And I got a lot to go through. But I just named you the ones that are most memorable for me. And another one I'll mention while we're on this topic is Metroid. I couldn't get anywhere in that when I was a kid either. And then finally... Okay, before I continue on with that, I must say that a lot of magazines and publications say Metroid is known for its level design, how ingenious it is. Let me tell you something. The original Metroid sucked hardcore. The second one sucked even more hardcore. Matter of fact, the series didn't matter at all until Super Metroid. Because Super Metroid was so finely tuned, it took everything that was wrong with 1 and 2 and got rid of it all and put in what worked for the third game. Matter of fact, I don't even think Metroid got popular until the third game, but I could be totally wrong on that. Anyways, that's my nerd talk for you. I thought I would respond to you in a video format, because I think that's a lot better than just typing out my opinions, because it would just take all day. And so anyways, I hope you enjoy this response, and I hope you take care and keep gaming. And I'm sure there'll be another video in the future of me beating a game that I've never beaten before. But I can tell you this much: if you've seen some of my older videos, Amagon will never happen. That game is too broken for me. Anyways, thanks for the video response. It was really cool to hear from you. And you take care of yourself and have a good night. Alright? Good day, good night, whatever time you watch this video. Take it easy, man.